Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Huddle. Hi, Jillian. How's it going?
I am doing wonderful. Happy MLK Day, Erica.
I know. Happy MLK Day. And I
Yes.
would like to tell the parents, welcome to the Huddle, because in the Huddle, no parent stands alone today. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jillian.
Nope, I was just saying, welcome, Huddle family. Welcome back to Moms in a Huddle. I'm Jillian Blackwell. I am the mom of three outstanding young men. My oldest son is Mac. I call him Big Mac, 23 years old. My other, who is an entrepreneur, actually works for Amazon, where I work, interesting enough. My middle son is Jonathan Blackwell. He is a junior guard at University of Wisconsin. Go Badgers. That's why I'm popping the red today. And I have a younger son. Robert, who is a senior in high school at Brother Rice, also a student athlete. And that's why we're here, Moms in a Huddle, because no mom stands alone. And we want to be able to share with you all the things that we're learning through the stages of being a sports mom. And I'm with Erica always.
Yeah, and I am Erica Morgan. I am the mother of Samaj Morgan. He currently and now have traded schools. He was in the portal for a little while, and that's one of the things you will learn about Moms in a Huddle. We're so transparent. We bring to you things that happen in our life in real time. So I'm excited that Samaj Morgan is now playing, and the mother of wide receiver at the UCLA. Samaj
Woo!
now a Bruin. So I'm going to say go Bruins,
Go
okay?
Bruins,
For
go
a long
Bruins.
time, I was go blue, but we're still kind of that same color. It's like that gold and blue. We're still
Yeah,
a part of the 10. So we're excited
yes,
for Samaj and his new journey. We thank God for the opportunity. UCLA is an amazing school.
it
The
is.
coaching staff have been phenomenal to us and our family. So we are excited for his new journey. So again, I'm one of your moms in the huddle of Samaj Morgan, wide receiver at UCLA. Go Bruins.
Go Bruins. And you also have your other son.
I do. Let me talk about him. That's my eldest baby. That's
Yes.
Ty. He's the one that I call. I mean, he doesn't like me when I say this, but he is really a mama's boy. That is
Yeah.
my son, and I'm super proud of him. I'm his mom, and like I tell everybody when we come on here, I know I look 25, but yes, I do have a 28 year. Well, he's going to be 28 this year. A
Wow.
28-year old,
That
and I'm
time
excited
flies.
to God be the glory for the youthfulness that he continues to give me.
To give, to give
So,
all of us. To give all of us.
yeah.
Well, and if you're catching the replay, we're still with you. Like, comment, share. Tag a sports mom, a sports parent who needs this information, is interested in this conversation. But before we dive into the conversation, we want to acknowledge what MLK. What are we talking about
Yeah.
today? Yes.
Yes, I will say a lot of people don't understand that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's just more than a holiday or more than a day that we have off. This is very pivotal for not just our student athletes, but for civil rights itself.
Yeah.
Some of the things I want to kind of highlight so that we can understand why my son, Jillian's son, and any other child of color that is going to schools or that have scholarships at university, we honor Dr. King because he is the shoulder that we stand on. One of the things he did, he provided was equal access to teams and scholarships. So before the civil rights movement, many schools and colleges, especially in the South, were segregated. And because Dr. King's the broader movement, Black students can attend and compete in predominantly white schools.
Mhm.
Academic scholarships are awarded based on talent, not race. Student athletes of color now have access to top programs, facilities, and coaching. If he did not march and if we did not have this movement without desegregation, many of today's colleges and pro athletes would never have
Yeah.
had these opportunities. So, coming from that aspect of
Mhm.
what we do in Moms in a Huddle and what we do as it relates to this, we understand the importance of days like this. And for
Yeah.
that, we honor Dr. King for today. We honor him today.
Yes, and we honor him by his legacy. He had a dream, and as parents, we're raising children who have dreams. And for sports families, the dream isn't just about the highlight reel; it's really about education. You talked about that early, integrity, opportunity, protection, and just a few that last beyond the football, the basketball, the I saw a bunch of hockey parents this past weekend at Wisconsin. it is so much about that. It's about legacy. So tonight we're connecting the dream to preparedness, because it's one thing to have a dream, it's another thing to be prepared. And so because when opportunity shows up, we want to make sure that our kids are ready. And that's really, when we think about Moms in the Huddle, that's what we want to do. Not only prepare and talk about it, we want to make sure we give parents, moms, dads, grandparents, aunties, and uncles everything that they can do to support the dream of that student. And so I'm excited to honor MLK just in this small little podcast.
Yes, yes. And I think that when we really think about honoring Dr. King, I think he passed before age 40. I don't know if he was 40, but he wasn't able to see what we're able to see. That's why it's so important that days like this, we are doing this in remembrance of him. So we salute you, Dr. King. We thank you for the time in which you've sowed into changing our lives. And today we honor you.
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm excited about that. And speaking of dreams, we want to talk a little bit about our guest, because you listen, she has done some amazing things. I'm just going to read her bio real quick. Tonight we're bringing in someone who has helped sports parents help their student athletes with their dreams, cut through the noise and make some really smart decisions. And so I want to read her bio. Alicia is an attorney, founder of the media platform called Ruling Sports. She's a tenured professor at Pepperdine University. I was going to become real professional today, not with my red shirt. I was just going to be like, when I hear Pepperdine, I think button up. Anyway, as an attorney, Alicia helps clients develop and preserve their legacies. She represents college and professional athletes, influencers, broadcasters, and businesses in a range of transactional and intellectual property matters, including sponsorships and NIL negotiations, business formation and transaction, company acquisition, and trademark law. Alicia also practices estate law, where she counsels members of her community on ensuring their legacy extend beyond their lives. She presently serves as a co-chair of the sports division of the American Bar Association Forum on the International Entertainment and Sports Industry. And just in last year, in 2025, she was named a fellow of the American Bar Foundation, an invitation-only recognition awarded to less than, hear this number, 1% of attorneys in the United States. Founding Ruling Sports in 2011, Alicia has spent over a decade as a sports journalist. She has been a contributor to The Athletic, The Washington Post, Forbes, CNBC, Huffington Post, and SportsIllustrated.com. Through these roles, she was one of the very few female sports writers credentialed for events including the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, NBA All-Star Game, Indianapolis 500. She just don't, dibble in the sports, Indianapolis 500, the Final Four, and more. And as a scholar, Alicia research centers on athletes' well-being. She is the program chair for the Sports Administration program at Pepperdine University. Through her research, she has worked with several U.S. Congress people and senators to draft proposed federal legislation to protect athletes' rights. We'll talk about that. From 2023 to 2025, she was one of 16 appointed members to the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Oversight Committee, one of 16. And I'm sure it's not a bunch of women on there. Anyway, Alicia is past president of the Sports Recreation Law Association and serves on the editorial boards of the Journal of Legal Aspects of Sports and the Journal of Global Sports Management. I know you're like, that's a long resume, but this woman is bad. I want to make sure y'all honor her. Yes. Alicia is a 2026 alumni of the Colorado School of Mines, where she was the second female student body president in the university's history, and in 2009, alumni of Chapman University School of Law. Lastly, she is a member of Sigma Kappa sorority, the Junior League of Denver, and supports several organizations working to end the orphan cycle and foster economic growth in Haiti. Would you guys welcome Alicia, her amazing resume? But beyond her resume, I've had a chance to spend some time with her. She's an amazing woman with some amazing accomplishments. And I'm so glad we got a chance to bring her in to Moms in the Huddle. Welcome to the Huddle. We're honored to have you. Come on in, Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
How you doing? Yes, yes. So I know I said a lot. Y'all tired of hearing my voice. I'm going to pass this over to Erica. Erica, what first question do we want to kick this off with her?
Alicia, I just want to say thank you for being sounds like a pioneer woman in so many areas that you rarely see us in. So thank you for being that, because I think that having women presence in a lot of these men battled or men fields kind of bring that softness and recognition of who we are and the power we really bring. And your resume is impeccable. Wow.
Yes,
wow. I do have a question. This is my first question for parents. We talk about NIL, right? And you're part of the sports and NIL. So for parents who hear NIL, which is name, image, and likeness, and immediately gets overwhelmed, what are some of the simplest ways to understand NIL, which is the name, image, and likeness, and what it actually is?
Well, first of all, thank you both so much for creating this platform. I think your work is incredible and so important, and B, letting me join you tonight of all nights, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I honor his legacy, and I think it's important that we each carry it forward. So when it comes to NIL, we have to get in our time machines, and we need to go back to the 1940s in the United States. What NIL is the right of publicity. So think about the 1940s. We have the burgeoning growth of Hollywood. We have actors and actresses like Shirley Temple, for instance. And these people are building fandom. They're building celebrity. And so a right was created in the 1940s called the right of publicity. This is a state law right. So it hasn't been written into law by our federal Congress, but over 40 states have adopted some version of the right within their borders. Well, from the 1940s until 2021, frankly, every American could commercialize their right of publicity. So if I wanted to create a t-shirt with my face on it, which I don't want to do, but if I wanted to, I could. And if there were consumers who wanted to purchase that, they could pay for it and I can earn income on it. Well, there was one fragment of American society that was held off or held away from financially benefiting or commercializing their NIL, their right of publicity, and it was college athletes. And I think it's interesting that we're talking about this today because the reason given for it was amateurism. But when we look into the history or the sociology or the reasons given why this group of Americans were prohibited from financially benefiting from their name, image, and likeness, that's a lot more to unpack than we probably have time for today. But to answer your question more directly, why shouldn't parents get stressed when they start thinking about NIL? And the answer to that question is it is a right. It is a right that for college and high school athletes in particular, it was hard earned and fought for. This is the next generation of civil rights in some instances where we are putting capital into more women's hands and also people of color's hands. And we know that when capital comes into hands, it gets dispersed to communities. So I think just reframing it, now that's not to say that the process is going to be stressful, but reframing it and recognizing, wow, for 80 some odd years, my son, my daughter's rights were violated by the NCAA. And finally, it's not perfect yet. Finally, some justice is flowing to these athletes.
Yes. I like that. And the beauty about that is it's funny that you start back in the 1940s, because back in the 1940s, what a lot of people don't know is there were some football players that actually had concussion, lost their lives, and they weren't getting paid. There were deaths that happened on the field. And Alicia, you bringing that up, which is why these young men should get paid for their name, image, and likeness. I like how you said it. It's a right.
It's the right. It's the right. And they shouldn't be, oftentimes because it's gone so long and this is not the, we're getting a sense of this is now the norm. Oftentimes when parents talk about it, or even when students talk about it, it's almost as if, they know they should have this, but it's almost as if like they're borrowing something, like it's not a right, like it's something that they should be, I'm just honored, shrinking. I'm just honored.
Mm.
No, you should be proud about the skill that you have. You should be proud about that now you're being compensated for. But I just want to, I know we have lots of questions, but I want to think, when I think about MLK and I think about the why was he an advocate? And so my question for you is, can you tell our audience, like, what inspired you to focus your work on college sports, NIL, and really athletes advocacy? Why did you want to be an advocate for athletes?
Yeah, I've always had a deep passion for civil rights. So I'm half Samoan. I'm the whitest Samoan you will ever look at, but I was raised by a Caucasian mother and a Samoan father. And so half of my family is not white. And I've seen firsthand in my life the impact, and I felt also, not just seen, I've seen and felt in my life the impact of racism. And so I can't explain it, Jillian, but like, I know both you and I are people of faith, and I think it was a calling on my life where it's just, I have this deep heart for the underserved. I have a deep heart for people who are being treated unjustly. And even when I was a little kid, like, it impacted me. As it relates to athletics, my father was friends with a couple of guys who played for the Denver Broncos in the 70s. I got to spend some time around them. I'm the only child, though, of a very sports-obsessed father. So he and I bonded over sports. And I think what attracted me to sport is stories of overcoming adversity, or just like deep focus on a goal to achieve an outcome. I've always been a storyteller, and so that's what led me into sports writing. But I became a professor at the University of Miami in Florida. Go Canes! Sorry for the fans watching. I became a professor at the University of Miami in 2013. And there I taught nearly 1,000 students, but a big population of my students were student athletes. And this was pre-NIL, this was pre-revenue sharing. And I saw how hard these people were working, particularly the football college athletes and also the men's basketball student athletes. I saw the injuries they were suffering. I knew that one of them was homeless despite being on one of those teams. And I said, this is wrong. At that time, Miami was generating $25 million annually just from their football team alone. But I had young men in my classroom who were going hungry and also not having a place to sleep. So I devoted my scholarship to righting that wrong. And we're not fully there yet. And maybe we can talk about that. But at least the young men taking the field tonight, most of them are going to have some meaningful income that they've tapped into.
Wow. Man, Alicia, that is, but some people are either jaded or they close their eyes to what you're just explaining regarding different things happening for a lot of these kids on the field. But you seem to have taken up that buck and said, listen, it stops here with me. I'm going to bring it to light. Some people won't talk about that, Alicia. And what's shocking to me, you indicated that there were young men that got out there on that field, generated money for their school, and they were homeless.
That's crazy.
That's one that I know of. So I don't know if there were more than one, but one that I certainly know of. There were men on some of those teams that couldn't read. So riddle me this. Like, riddle me how you have the reading comprehension of, like, it's probably not a good thing, like, say too far out, but riddle me, like, how you have a reading comprehension less than an elementary grade school level, but you're eligible to compete in NCAA athletics. So I saw the hypocrisy, and related to being the only woman in the room, I've used that to my advantage. I am not afraid of a fight. And someday this is probably going to come back to bite me. But I think there's strength in being demure, if that makes sense, where I always approach the fight with grace and patience and kindness. And I speak truth to power, because when you're in some of these rooms, there's not a lot of that taking place. It's a lot of protectionism. It's a lot of keeping the status quo because it's working for a lot of people. Well, the status quo wasn't built for a person like me, so I'm not afraid to go in and ruffle a few feathers.
Well, we're glad you're not afraid to ruffle. So I think this part of our segment is just basic NIL 101. What are some of when we think about negotiating a contract, NIL, what are some of the foundational must-haves you recommend before an athlete signs anything? Like
Yes.
if there were some foundational things, wait a minute, make sure red flag, or these are some things that you must have in your agreement.
Yeah. So I want to break this into two pieces because the terminology, and this is purposeful, and we can dig into that a little bit. The terminology gets a little bit jumbled. So right now, I'm going to focus on college athletes. So either seniors who are coming into the college ecosystem or existing college athletes. Those athletes can enter into two different types of contracts. Type 1 is the NIL contract. I think a better way to think of NIL, again, all NIL is the right of publicity. And what an NIL contract then is an endorsement deal. So this would be your child is doing something with a local restaurant, or maybe your child's a real superstar and has a deal with Nike, Adidas, or Jordan brand. So another way to think of these is brand deals. We also have on the other side of the coin revenue sharing deals. These are direct payments from the university to the college athlete. So in both of these, a couple of key things to look at is one, the term. What is the length of time that this contract is in effect or in place? So as an attorney, that's oftentimes, listen, I read the whole contract, but my eyes first go there to see like, okay, what length of time are we dealing with here? Because some of these contracts that athletes are signing are perpetual terms, which will get me to the next point. The next thing I think everyone, whether you're an athlete or just anyone entering into a right of publicity agreement, you need to focus on the license. So I'm going to kind of slow this part down. Right of publicity. It's a right that every American possesses. Well, what does that right do? How does it work? Well, I, Alicia, could create my own business where I produce shirts featuring my face, and I could build marketplace channels to sell those shirts. That's kind of hard. That takes time. So what I could do instead is I could partner with Adidas and do what's called license my name, image, and likeness. And then Adidas could create merchandise featuring that face. And in exchange, they're going to give me a portion of the revenue. We call that portion the royalties. Licensing and the breadth of the license is really important. And it's best suited that you have an attorney look at these. I know not everybody can do that, but I'm going to give you some buzzwords. Is the license revocable or irrevocable? So if it's irrevocable, that means if me and Adidas get into a fight and I want to come over here and sign with Nike during that term, I can't do that.
Right.
So is the license revocable or irrevocable? Is it sub-licensable? So what sub-licensable means is I give Adidas a license, and now Adidas can go into the marketplace during the term and license it to third parties. So an example of that would be recently Adidas has had a deal with Alexander McQueen, the fashion house, and maybe Alexander McQueen wants to create Alicia shirts. That'd be sweet. But that sub-licensable language has to be present for them to be able to do that. Well, that takes away some of the power of the athlete.
Right.
Because if that word's in there, who knows who they're going to sub-license it to? They could get real dirty and sub-license. This wouldn't happen, but they could sub-license it, say, to a pornography company.
Yeah.
So revocable versus irrevocable. I always want for my clients it to be non-sub-licensable, non-sub-licensable or sub-licensable, assignable or non-assignable. So where that comes into play is sometimes companies get purchased, or sometimes they go through bankruptcy, or sometimes they have creditors. If the right is assignable, the company can assign your NIL and the right to commercialize it to whoever picks up their bankruptcy rights, their creditors' rights, or whatever entity purchases them. So we're coming at this from a really high level.
Right.
But I think these are just some things to eyeball.
That's good. That's
so
a good start. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Erica.
No, go ahead.
That's a good start. So that was more on the NIL side of being partnering with an outside organization from the university. Talk a little bit about the university, the collective.
Yes. So typically your revenue sharing agreement is going to come from the collective. Now, here's where I think if you're confused, don't feel bad. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you some context because that might help the confusion. So the NCAA is founded in 1906, and in the 1950s, the term student athlete is created. And it was created to defend against a workers' compensation case. So a young man at the University of Denver suffered a career-ending injury on the football field. Because he couldn't play football, his scholarship was cut. So he tried to obtain workers' compensation so he could keep affording school.
Right.
Well, only employees can gain access to workers' compensation. So how the school defended the case is they created this new term, student athlete, to say you're not an employee. So these contracts that college athletes are signing with the collective, they're not employment agreements. The NCAA remains steadfast that college athletes are not employees. So if you read the revenue sharing agreement, it's an NIL agreement.
Right.
It's literally an NIL agreement where what the school or collective is doing is they're licensing the NIL for broadcast, marketing, including on social media, perhaps some merchandise, depending upon how your agreement is structured. This, and I'm going to go a little off course, you can stop me. This is interesting though, because we're starting to see some athletes signing these revenue sharing agreements and then having remorse and wanting to get out of the deal. These aren't employment contracts.
Right.
And so one fact that people are thinking about is there's a young man, the quarterback at Duke University, Mansa, and he signed a reported $4 million deal with that team, but he wants to enter the transfer portal and go elsewhere. He signed a 2-year agreement, purportedly. And so that means that Duke owns his NIL rights for television broadcasts of football games during that window. So even if he leaves and signs another deal, Duke can enforce that agreement to prevent whatever school he ends up on from putting his face in broadcast.
Are you kidding me?
And it's almost like listening to how you're explaining this, Alicia, they'll say you're not an employee, but then it's almost like you're a 1099 employee because we'll give you all this money up front. We're not going to tax you on it because we don't take your taxes out, but you're almost like a 1099 employee. So it's almost oxymoronic to say that they're not employees. And it's good that you bring that up because a lot of schools now are getting insurance, key player insurance on the athletes without them even knowing it. And it's in the contracts.
Yeah. And that's my next battle is to deem college athletes employees, because if you look at the law, like the law is pretty black on white on what an employee is. The NCAA and its conferences have spent at this point tens of millions of dollars lobbying the federal Congress to create a new standard for determining what an employee is. Thus far, Congress has balked, but that employee status is really important. It's really important, at least in the revenue producing sports, that we get to the point where they are legally categorized as employees, because then they can collectively bargain. Right now, the rules that are being imputed against them are created by people my age and above who are not living their lives and who do not fully know what issues they're facing.
Right.
They being the athletes.
Wow. And I will say, I mean, just what you just said was a lot to kind of unpack, but I will ask the next question, Will, which is, how has the NIL changed the transfer portal landscape? And what families should keep in mind during the transition, like our family, because my son was in the transfer portal. What are some of those things you think about that you can tell parents before they even enter?
Yeah. Listen, I am always going to side with the athletes, and I'm always going to side with the ability of an athlete to find the best opportunity for them. That being said, we have to weigh decisions with data. And something that strikes me as an educator is the number of particularly young men in football and men's basketball who enter the transfer portal and then do not get picked up. And so what that means, and there's thousands of them in the cycles. I saw data that it's gone down for FBS football players. It's to be seen what happens with men's basketball following March Madness. But there's thousands of people who were enrolled at a university, presumptively on a scholarship, having housing, room, board, coaching, and pursuing a degree that now don't have that access. So I think it's really critical that we weigh decisions fully and we look at the short term being, what are my playing opportunities here? How much NIL income am I bringing in? But also the long term of, if I don't get picked up, how important is it to me that I'm giving up the ability to earn a degree?
Yes, that's major. And I think, when we hear the staggering numbers of thousands of players that are in the portal, one of the things that we've learned, and I don't know if this is legal or not, and some of the things that I've heard that people do, is that they have those conversations prior to entering the portal. Talk about that, like what is legal and what is not legal to do. So again, you talked about looking at data. Part of that data is, are you having conversation with people, right?
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, because the system is kind of set up in a way that it creates this outcome where we now have thousands of young men and some young women left without an opportunity. So hypothetically, you're not supposed to be having those conversations until you enter the portal. We can think of this as an exclusive relationship. So while you're at the school, playing for the school, it's an exclusive contract where you're not even supposed to be considering other opportunities. I think that is shifting, especially as more athletes sign with agents, and the agents are very likely brokering some of those deals and the conversations. It's critical that you have a legitimate agent, though. There's a lot of people holding themselves out as NIL agents. And what you have to understand about this area, and a big reason for this, is the NCAA's unwillingness to recognize college athletes as employees has created an ecosystem where the agents are unregulated, largely. So typically, who would regulate agents is a union. Well, a union is formed by employees who are exercising their rights under the National Labor Relations Act. Because we have this system that doesn't want to recognize the employee status of college athletes, the unionization process has been slowed down, and thus there's no really cohesive union. There's some trade associations that have popped up, but there's not as significant of system to check the legitimacy of agents. So check the legitimacy of your agent. Okay, well, how do I do that, Alicia? There's a couple of quick things that you can do. So first, a lot of states have a law on their books governing agents. A great way to check if your state has this is Google UAAA. So U and then 3 A's. The name of the law is Uniform Athletes Agents Act. And then type in your state. Or you could Google, does Colorado have a version of the UAAA? There's over 40 states that have adopted it. A key thing that states that have adopted a version of the UAAA requires is that agents register with the Secretary of State within that state. And this isn't just professional sports agents. It also would apply in this scenario, since these people are working with athletes at the intercollegiate level. So call the Secretary of State, give them the name, see if they're registered. The registration process is cumbersome. You have to have bonds or have insurance. You have to oftentimes go through a background check. If the person's not registered, that's a big red flag that you probably want to cut your losses soon.
No, that's good. That's good information.
What is
a question for you. So this is something that's Eric and I were talking about earlier. So how do athletes protect themselves? Let me give you a scenario. So now people, the general public, even if you're not really a sports fan, people know about NIL. And I have been privy to some conversations with some students, athletes that might, for example, are playing games, right? They're on, what's the name of these games, Erica, that these kids play?
2K for basketball.
Y2K, right. I keep saying Y2K. I don't know what that's it's not Y2K. But, and so, there's this thing out there that they're like stealing accounts and trying to, try and steal your account. They try to get money from you to get accounts because they know that
extortion.
They're black extortion.
So is what you mean, Jillian, like I would, like your son's name is Jonathan Blackwell. I would log into 2K and I would get the username Jonathan Blackwell and then I would try to sell that to him.
Yeah, that might be one. Or I somehow hacked into your account and now I take your account hostage. And now I say, in order for you to get your account back, you got to pay me some money. Like, it's just so interesting, all these ways in which, you have a college athletes and people are trying to go after them because they know that they have money. And so what are some of the advice you would give to student athletes is to protect, one, their brand, two, the parties and the people that they're hanging out with, strangers or non-strangers, because now you've gone into this deal with this university or a deal with a brand, and now you have to be very responsible about the interactions that you have with people. So what would you say to an athlete?
So let's start with the 2K example. I love Y2K. Maybe we can create that video game for millennials like us.
Yes. I love that.
There's a market there. So with the 2K example, if that fact pattern is happening, the person or people it's happening to need to call the police first, assuming they've not done anything bad. Call the police first. If the police are non-responsive, which oftentimes with cyber crimes, they are pretty non-responsive, I would call the state attorney's general office if that's happening. And just, run the fact pattern by the nice person who answers the phone. Just say like, hey, I'm going to run a fact pattern by you. I don't know who I need to talk to in your organization, but this is happening, and I think the state would care that this is happening to its citizens.
Yeah. Wow.
As it relates to protecting the brand, I think it's a multifaceted approach. And I think it begins with the athlete knowing their why. And that process can hopefully begin in the home. I know sometimes home isn't the best place of cultivating this, but if it's not in the home, maybe with a coach that you trust or a mentor or a spiritual leader, why are we doing this? Like, why are you dedicating 60 hours a week to this sport? Yeah, money's nice, but like, why are you sacrificing your body, your free time?
Yes.
Because your why dictates the rest of your steps. And I think this is where mentors, parents, spiritual leaders, teachers need to have some real honest conversations with college athletes. We have to remember most of these athletes are under the age of 25. Your brain does not fully develop until you're 25. And sadly, the last part that develops is the frontal lobe, decision making. Yep. And so there's a lot of things put in front of you. And you have to realize very quickly that everything and everyone put in front of you isn't for you and it isn't good for you. We're seeing this with the gambling scandals. Last week,
oh my,
there were tens of young men who are now facing federal prosecution.
One was Jonathan's teammate.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
But the problem with that, Jillian and Alicia, last year the NCAA opened up this little 1-2 week window that our kids, and Jillian, you raised a big stink about it when we had an episode. They opened up this 1 to 2 week window, right? And said, oh, college athletes can gamble, but you just can't gamble in this area. Or they tried to set perimeters. Then after that 2 weeks and people had an upheaval, they pull it back. So then you got these young men that say, oh, I can do this, not knowing the total framework and the landscape with this thing, getting in on what NCAA told them they could do. And then all of a sudden, we're bringing federal charges against young men that they don't understand.
Well, some of that is true, but in these cases, what I think Alicia's talking about, these were students. Let's say I played for ABC University. I'm betting against ABC University.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. That's been illegal even before then.
I know.
But I will say when they released that, a lot of kids didn't understand what that completely meant. They're kids. They're like 18, like Alicia was saying, 18 or 25. They're thinking, well, maybe I can get away with this. Maybe this is okay, right?
Well, and what concerns me about this, and just like why it's important that you know your why, and if your mentor isn't at home, you attach yourself to someone trustworthy. And not all professors, but like there's one professor that you can trust. Like at school, there's at least one professor you can trust. Maybe not, but
don't know.
The thing that college athletes are encountering now is something professional athletes have encountered really since the 80s, when media publications began printing their salaries. Well, everyone knows how much money you make. And so there's a target on your back. And what we're seeing with these indictments now, these allegations need to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. It's very possible that all of these people involved or accused are innocent. But if you look at the fact pattern, there's organized crime involved in these indictments. And so the question becomes, is like, how are these people getting engaged with the athletes? And with social media, it's very easy. And so when someone comes into your life with glitz, glamour, get rich quick schemes, like I just take a couple extra or a couple less shots in the second half and I can 50,000 easy. So I think a lot more education, people like me need to be educating athletes on what to look for, because it's not dressed up in something super scary. These pitfalls that you can fall into, they're not dressed up as something super scary. Oftentimes the pitfall comes in a really friendly person who's going to open these fun doors for you and take you on this journey.
Wow.
And a lot of it starts from the top down. So the kids are just the bottom of the barrel, but there's a top to this, even in the arena of NFL, NBA, from top executives that people don't want to say. And then they take, it's almost like throwing a rock out in your hand and let's see who gets in trouble, right?
That's right.
So, and that's the sad part behind it, but you know what happens. But I will say that's disheartening, Jillian. I mean, especially a young man that's trying to go to school, do basketball, do football, or any other sports, and then they get entangled in this, not knowing the severity of it. And sometimes, but I will say, you know, intention, if it's a criminal nature, intention does matter. And if you can prove intent, then that's where it's going to come in for a lot of these things beyond the reasonable doubt. So my thing is, my hopes is that these young men get a second chance and that they understand that it's not right? So that's just the defense lawyer in me to say, hey, we're going to argue, right?
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I love having two attorneys on the call. This debate. So I know we're getting close to it and want to be mindful of your time. This is now going to be our lightning round. Just have some few questions for you. I'll start off. So biggest advice in one sentence for sports parents, Alicia.
Ask questions. Curiosity is key. Jillian, I hope you're okay with me saying that. Like, you and I have worked together. And one thing I loved about working with you, like everyone should feel comfortable listening to this podcast because Jillian walks the walk that she talks. I love that you had so many questions and that you cared. And it's like, I don't know what this is. Like, what is this? Why is this there? Now, I understand that like not everyone has a lawyer on retainer. But there's an increasing number of free resources available. I'll plug my own website here, rulingsports.com. We have a newsletter. We have weekly podcasts. My email address is on there. It might take me a couple of days, but I'm happy to continue the discourse. So I think the best advice is don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, don't feel like you need to know everything in life, regardless of who we are or what we're doing. Where we get ourselves into trouble is when we run headfirst into things that we don't really know what is going on.
Yeah. And shout out to Erica. I mean, listen, when we were talking, Alicia, my buddy it was like a phone a friend. I was like, Erica, what's that? So again, that's one of the reasons why we started this, because one of the things we recognized was it can't just be us that have all these questions. So how do we share with other parents? And so shout out to Erica, who was that phone a friend.
Well, I was one of those friends that was going through the same exact thing you were going through. So when you have somebody that's going through it, and sometimes trying to understand this legal jargon, it gets convoluted, it gets mixed, it gets ambiguous. And for what most people don't understand, I tell everybody, contracts are negotiable. You don't have to sign everything in this contract just because they say, hey, here's the money, sign this. I always say that's the four corners of a document that if you go to court, that's what's going to be argued. So you want to argue like a Jillian ahead of time, ask the question, say, can I put this in there instead of this? Can I take this out instead of that? And here's the thing. My question before I sign a contract and for even my son is asking them, what do you think that if we disagreed on something later after I sign this contract, that will be an issue in court? Because what will happen is a lot of places and people that create contracts for you to sign, right, Alicia, it's sometimes one-sided and it's in their best interest. Therefore, a court will look at it and say, wait a minute. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? This was probably in good faith. So therefore, I'm always looking at when you come back and say, well, did you read this little thing right here? It's not the fine print. I read it. Here's the thing. It either should have been taken out or maybe I should have asked for it to be modified. So I don't want parents to think that they shouldn't ask, can this part be modified? Because I don't like what this says here.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to walk away from the bargaining table. If the other side's not negotiating, now listen, like negotiation doesn't always mean getting what you want. I've always learned or thought that the best sign of a good negotiation is both sides walk away kind of mad because it means that they both had to give up something to get something. But sometimes if they're not agreeing to those terms, Erica, like you've got to get up and walk away. And this is where it's important to know what your goals, targets, and walkaways are in a negotiation. What do we have to have? What can we give up? And those giving up points can often be used to create leverage. I think you raised an important point, though, like the two of you in your conversation just now. Talk to other parents. The schools, there's some great schools, but you have to understand right now, the school is the adversary. And what I mean by that as an educator is in a contract, like you are in adversarial relationships to each other, where they're responsible for looking out for their best interest and hopefully someone's looking out for yours. Yeah. They're not going to facilitate the conversation between the other players and the other parents. I have a client who was encountering some trouble getting his payments on time. And he said, Alicia, I don't want you to come in hot because like I want to come in hot. Like, no, don't do that. Let me talk to the guys. And they started sharing information with each other and they started acting like a collective. And guess what? Money started moving.
Of course it did.
Yep.
Yeah. Listen, you know, and that's why we made this platform so parents can talk. It doesn't necessarily have to be that I'm talking to all the folks at the university that my son attends, but I just want to know, like I was talking to my husband and I were at Madison and I was like, I want to talk to these hockey parents. Like I have no idea. I don't know anything about hockey, but I'm like, I'm just interested in their world and how they're navigating all the things. And so perhaps that's just me. I'm just, I'm always watching people, but I just think that parents need to open up their mouth. Because we did it when we were having juice bars and with our kids when they were 5 and 6. For some reason, we get to college, we just sit and watch our kids play. No, this is a business. Have the conversation. Find out what's going on. So
let me give one asterisk to that, though. Some of these contracts have confidentiality provisions in them. Yep. So before you're like, oh, well, Alicia told me to like go talk to everyone. Read the confidentiality provision to inform what you talk about.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it.
And I will say, I don't always like that clause because they don't want you to talk to one another because they have done something different from somebody else, right? So if they do include it in there, it's just like, they'll tell you, hey, you can't talk and bring this up, show anybody. And it's like, but why? See, and you can do that with them, but why? Yeah. Why can't I do? Well, they'll explain to you, everyone's contract is different, but the question is still, why?
Yeah.
Why? Then they should be able to answer it for you. And it is to suffice, like Alicia said, you can either walk away from it. Sometimes it'll come back to you, and sometimes it just wasn't for you.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
so Eric, I know you always end with the last question.
Well, Alicia, I would like to ask you this last question. Honestly, Alicia, we kind of need to bring you back for another episode.
Yes, we do.
I feel like we really didn't pull a lot from you that we wanted to, but I would love to come back.
We got a laundry list of questions.
Yeah. And number two, my question is your journey, your entire journey in one word, and why?
Purpose. I think life is a gift. I feel so blessed to be alive. Knowing where I come from, I'm a first generation college student, I think is the easiest way to explain it. So nothing in life has been handed to me. I always tell students who get their undergraduate, you are part of the 1% in this world. Only 1% of the global population has a college degree. My grandmother was single until she was close to 39 years old. She earned 42 cents a week. I feel really lucky to have the opportunities I have given my background. So I work a lot, but it's really soul serving. And I feel so lucky for the people I get to meet and the places I get to go. And, hopefully I live a very, very, very long life. But like at the end of it, the thing that I want people to say is she always looked out for others and tried to make life better for the collective. And that's the way I'm doing that.
Purpose.
I love it. Purpose.
Thank you. Thank you for your purpose of being here with us. We appreciate it and your time.
Yeah. One last thing. So I know they can get in touch with you, rollingsports.com. Any social media, how do they get in touch with you?
So I'm on social media on X, Ruling Sports. I get a lot of hate over there, so maybe you can leave me a nice comment. Instagram is also Ruling Sports. I'm on LinkedIn, which is Alicia, spelled like Alicia Keys, Jessop with an O, not a U.
Awesome. Awesome. Again, we're going to bring you back. If you allow us to bring you back, that would be amazing. So much is happening in the sports arena and the legal side. So certainly thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us in Huddle.
Thanks, Alicia. Wow, Julian, that was amazing. I don't want to disregard our comments. We do have some comments on Instagram. We have a dad for _Coach Chi. He said, I'm getting beat up pretty bad for asking questions. He said, I just dropped my son off at University of Minnesota this past weekend. Please don't feel bad, sir. And Jillian is the master art of making sure you ask questions. Jillian, speak a little to the coach.
I want to make sure I understand the context. He's asking his child questions about what's happening in his world.
No, when she talked about asking questions, and
girl,
or a woman, she said she's the mom. She talked about asking questions as it probably relates to anything with her child that we were discussing. So she said she gets beat up for that.
Well, so I'm gonna take it from both ways. One, you have to have the conversation with your child to say, I'm going to be your biggest advocate. So perhaps you may get mad that I'm going to ask the questions. You just play your sport and allow me to ask the questions. They could be mad at me. You just play, right? So you want to make sure you inform them that I'm going to be asking questions, whether it's to the collective, to the.
She asked questions to coaches and agents, like we do, like how we are with people, not right. Baby.
So you have to tell them, hey, I'm going to ask you a question. And then, I tell people treat you the way that you allow them to treat you. So the first interaction, hey, my mother used to call me the question mark, even when I was a kid. Jillian, oh my God, if you ask another, and I was a baby, so I had how does that work? And so just tell them, you know what, I'm very inquisitive. This is new to me, approach it that way. This is really new. So if I ask all the questions, it's not because I'm questioning what you're doing. I'm just trying to learn. I just want to make sure that I'm my child's advocate, and we're just getting to know each other. So I just want you to know that's part of my personality. So if you frame it in that way, when you start asking questions, like I told you on January 19th, when I asked 1,000 questions, I tried to warn you. And so I think they approach it in that manner. But I always want to make sure you inform your child so they don't. So when they're having the conversation with the coach or whatever, that's my mama. She's going to ask you a bunch of questions. I know so they're prepared. So I tell my son, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. And he knows me.
And she says here, she said she has asked them, they have gotten silent or non-responsive. So my remedy for that is email. Put things in writing. Hey, I want to just reiterate this question. And I just had a question because it'll remind them of, hey, you know what I'm saying? Maybe we need to respond to her because she's not letting up. Yeah. And then we also have, I just want to kind of read some of the other stuff on Instagram.
Can I go back to the email? And then there's nothing wrong. You know, we've been corporate America. CC somebody. Everyone has a boss. So if you email the coach, there's a head coach, or there is an athletic director, or there is whoever that next level is. And again, give up. You know, I'm a big advocate of grace. Always give them grace. People get busy. Oftentimes, you are the furthest from them. If it's a football team, they got 77 other. I don't know. I'm just throwing this number out. 77 other players. On a basketball team, they got maybe 15 to 12 players. So perhaps they're just busy. And so I always think about their schedule. They're not neglecting you. They're just busy. So always give them grace, but then follow with a text, follow with the email, and say, hey, I've emailed you 5 times, blah, blah, blah.
And
so
I would say operate in wisdom too, because you don't want to be the mom or the dad.
Oh my God. No, not that parent.
And they use it against your kids. So
absolutely.
You just want to operate in wisdom with whatever questions you're asking and whatever questions you're trying to get, especially contract questions. There's no dumb question. Other questions, you have to get to the point and say, should I ask them? You know, what them? And I see Jacob the actual Jacob Goodman. Hey, Mrs. Morgan and Mrs. Blackwell. I hope all is well. So people are kind of tuning in. Angela says, I'm just kind of reading what was on our show that we did. And thank you, ladies. Always keeping us informed and updated on the latest information. Gigi says, this is by far the best informative podcast. I will forever let it be known. I support you, ladies. 100%. Thanks for the information. And Jill, she said, great question there. And Gigi also says she's taking notes. Latricia, one of our moms that we honor every year, Mother's Day, she said, beautiful.
Thank you.
And Jessica, hi, beautiful ladies. And Jamie Story, we just got a lot of people that's coming in saying, yes, this is great. We're clapping.
Thank you for the moms. Thank you for the aunties. Yes. We certainly appreciate you joining us.
So thank you, everyone. But I will say next week, we are going to have an episode. I know we're going to be bringing some other things. I did reach out to an actual company called the Covenant Sports Group. They are a Christian sports agency, and they let it be known that they represent everyone. And when you come in here, Jesus is at the center of representation. And that's why they're called the Covenant Sports Group. So we're going to have Mr. Truitt that comes on next week. So please join that. That's going to be very interesting to see how that collaborates into making decisions as an agent for your kids. So
yes,
it's going to be a good show.
And then we're also going to bring in some moms from University of Indiana. I'm rooting for them tonight. So we'll see.
Yes.
I mean, they were going to come in, I think last week, they were just too nervous. They're like, can we just get past this game tonight? And so I guess I'm turning to a football fan.
My hope is that Indiana go ahead and win that natty, because that national championship and the what is it? Whatever goes along with that and adrenaline that happens for national champions and different things, it's a beautiful thing. So definitely we want to hear their story when they come in.
Yeah,
football is just one of those things, but that's going to be good. We're going to have
Did Alicia say she went to Miami that's playing tonight? Is that correct?
I don't know. I think she said that she taught at Miami. She taught a lot of the young men.
Okay, Alicia, she's backstage. Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're rooting for she's rooting for the other team. So
I understand.
Yeah, so that'll be amazing. Okay, so we got some great shows coming up, great episodes. Thank you so much for joining us in a huddle. I know, Erica, this week you got some you got to run to, so I apologize that we ran over, but so love you.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody have a great day, and remember to tune in next week on Moms in a Huddle. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because we need you to like us. Go to our Instagram, go to our Facebook, go to our YouTube and like us, because
and tell people
are standing in the huddle with you. You do not stand alone. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.